Iga Swiatek just took apart Karolina Pliskova in under 70 minutes. 6-1, 6-3. No drama, no scares, nothing that looked like doubt anywhere on her face. This is a six-time Grand Slam champion running through Wimbledon like she owns the place, because right now, she basically does. Then a reporter asked her about the next round, and something shifted. She did not say dangerous. She did not say tough or scary or any of the words champions usually reach for when they want to sound respectful without sounding worried. She picked one word: tricky. Tricky is not a word you use for someone you are about to steamroll. Tricky is a word you use when a small part of you is not fully sure what is coming. So who is this player that made one of the most dominant champions in modern tennis choose her words that carefully? Her name is Eala. She is 21 years old. She is from the Philippines, and a year ago, almost nobody outside her home country had heard of her. Here is where it gets strange. Eala is not ranked anywhere near Swiatek. She is not a top 10 player. She has never won a Grand Slam. On paper, this should be one of the most predictable matches of the entire tournament. So why does the player at the very top of the sport sound like she is bracing for something? There are two layers to this story. One of them is written in the history between these two women, a history most casual fans have never actually seen laid out. The other is something Swiatek may not even be fully saying out loud, something hiding underneath that one careful word. By the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why tricky was not just a throwaway word. You are going to see the pattern that built up to it, match by match, and you are going to understand what Saturday at Wimbledon really means for both of these players. But to get there, we have to go back. Not to this tournament, not even to this year. We have to go back to Miami, to a night nobody in tennis saw coming. Let us start with who Eala actually is, because if this is your first time hearing her name, you are not behind. You are simply meeting her at the exact moment the rest of the tennis world is catching up. Eala is from the Philippines. She is 21 years old. And right now, she is the 29th seed at Wimbledon, the first Grand Slam seeding of her entire career. That detail matters more than it sounds. A seeding is not a participation trophy. It means the sport officially recognizes her as one of the 32 best players in this draw, someone dangerous enough that the tournament had to plan around her. But here is the number that actually explains why Swiatek chose her words so carefully. This is not the first time these two have played each other. It is the third. And heading into Saturday, the head-to-head between them sits at one win each, 1-1. Think about what that number actually represents. Iga Swiatek has won 6 Grand Slam titles. She has spent time as world number 1. She has a resume that most players will never come close to touching in their entire career. And against this 21-year-old from the Philippines, she has split their meetings right down the middle. There is something else buried in that stat line, something even sharper. These two have never played each other on grass. Not once. Their first meeting was on hard court, their second was on clay. Every previous data point either of them has on the other belongs to a completely different surface than the one they are about to step onto. So imagine two boxers who have fought twice before, once in one arena, once in another, splitting the wins evenly. Now imagine them stepping into a third arena neither of them has ever fought in before, with the score tied and everything still to prove. That is Saturday at Wimbledon. This is why tricky was not a throwaway word. Swiatek is not walking into a routine match against a name she does not respect. She is walking into a rubber match on new ground against someone who has already beaten her once and already pushed her to the limit a second time. And if you are the type of person who needs to see the receipts before you believe a story like this, stick around, because we are about to go through exactly what happened in those two matches, point by point, moment by moment. Once you see it laid out, you will understand why one careful word from a 6-time Grand Slam champion is actually one of the loudest things she has said all tournament. Because Eala's first win over Swiatek did not come from a routine afternoon on tour. It came from one of the biggest shocks tennis saw in all of 2025, and almost nobody outside of hardcore tennis circles remembers just how unlikely it really was. Miami, 2025. Eala walked onto that court without a seed next to her name. She was not a rising favorite. She was a wild card, ranked 140 in the world, a number so far outside the spotlight that most tournament previews would not have mentioned her at all. Across the net stood Iga Swiatek, former world number 1. a player who, at that point, had already made a habit of ending the tournaments of players ranked far higher than 140. The result should have been a formality. It was not. Eala won 6-2, 7-5. Read those numbers again. This was not a nervy escape or a lucky tiebreak. She took the first set comfortably, and even when Swiatek dug in during the second, Eala closed it out anyway. A player nobody had prepared for beat one of the best players on the planet in straight sets on American soil. So how does a wild card ranked 140 do that to a former world number one? Right after the match, Eala stood in front of the Miami crowd, still trying to process what had just happened. She admitted she could barely believe it herself, that she felt like she was floating, and she made a point of thanking the people who had shown up to watch her, along with everyone tuning in from home. That win did not happen in isolation either. It was not a one-match fluke that quietly disappeared into the record books. Eala rode that momentum straight into the Miami semifinals, becoming the first Filipina to ever reach that stage of the tournament. A few months later, that same run of form carried her all the way to her first ever WTA Tour level final at Eastbourne. Now here is where the story gets even harder to explain away as luck. Iga Swiatek does not lose to players outside the top 100 very often. It is rare enough that when it happens, it tends to get remembered as one of the signature upsets of that entire season. This was not some journeyman grinding out an ugly three-setter. This was a teenager nobody had scouted, walking in and dismantling a Grand Slam champion in front of a home American crowd. So if this was really just a fluke, a one-time lightning strike that would never happen again, you would expect Swiatek to erase it quickly and completely the next time they met. Fully dominant, no question marks left behind. That is not what happened, because a month later, in Madrid, Swiatek got her chance at a response, and she needed every bit of it. Madrid, 1 month after Miami, Swiatek finally got her rematch, and she won. But look closer at how she won, because this is where the real story starts to unravel. 4-6, 6-4, 6-2. She lost the first set. This is Iga Swiatek we are talking about. A player who, more often than not, walks into matches and imposes her rhythm from the very first game. Falling behind early against a player ranked far below her is not supposed to happen twice in a row against the same opponent. But it did. Eala took that first set in Madrid. She made Swiatek work from behind, again, on a completely different surface than Miami. Swiatek eventually found her footing and pulled the match back, closing it out in 3 sets. A win is a win, but it was not the kind of statement win that erases doubt. It was a fight. So let's put the full picture together. 2 matches, 2 different surfaces, hard court in Miami, clay in Madrid, 1 win each. And in both matches, at some point, Swiatek found herself chasing the scoreboard against a player she was supposed to comfortably beat. This is not a story about a champion occasionally letting her guard down against a nobody. This is a pattern. Twice, on 2 different surfaces, this same 21-year-old has put a 6-time Grand Slam champion in a position she rarely finds herself in. And now they are walking into round 3 at Wimbledon, about to play on a 3rd surface, one that neither of them has ever tested against the other. No hard court data, no clay court data. Grass is a complete unknown between these two, and the head-to-head sitting at 1-1 means neither player gets to walk in with the psychological cushion of history on her side. Here is the detail that makes this even sharper. Swiatek is not walking into Wimbledon cold. She has won here before. She is currently unbeaten in 9 straight matches at this tournament. She has reached the 3rd round or better in 26 consecutive Grand Slams, a streak that only 2 players in the history of the sport have ever topped, Martina Navratilova and Conchita Martinez. So this is not a champion who forgot how to close matches. This is one of the most dominant Grand Slam performers of this entire era, someone with almost unmatched consistency deep into majors. And she is still choosing the word tricky. Once you sit with both of those facts side by side, the historic dominance and the careful word choice, the picture flips. This was never Swiatek being politely respectful of a lower-ranked opponent out of habit. This was a champion with one of the greatest Grand Slam streaks in the sport, openly admitting there is a version of this match she cannot fully predict. That reframe alone should be enough to make you want to watch Saturday closely. But there is still more evidence sitting underneath the surface, numbers that push this story even further than a tied head-to-head and one nervy set in Madrid. This is not just a feeling. The numbers back it up. and they go deeper than most people realize. Start with Eala's form on grass this season alone. 11 wins, 3 losses. That is not a warm-up record. That is a player who has figured something out about this surface specifically. She won the title in Birmingham. She reached the semifinals in Berlin, and getting there meant beating 2 legitimate top 10 players along the way. Elena Rybakina and Alina Svitolina, both known for their power on exactly this kind of court. Now bring it back to this tournament. Just 2 rounds ago, Eala faced Maya Joint, the same player who had just knocked out Serena Williams. Eala lost the first set, then she won the next 2, 6-2, 6-0, closing the match by winning 9 straight games in a row. That is not someone hanging on. That is someone who found another gear when the pressure was highest. Former US Open finalist Greg Ruseski put it plainly when he broke down this matchup. He said there is a sense of destiny building around Eala right now, and that if she beats Swiatek, it would be a massive statement, potentially her first ever run to the 4th round of a Grand Slam. Now here is the number almost nobody is talking about, the one buried underneath all of Swiatek's dominant headlines this season. In 3-set matches in 2026, Swiatek's record is 5 wins and 8 losses. Read that again. The same player with one of the greatest Grand Slam streaks in tennis history, the player currently unbeaten in 9 straight matches at Wimbledon, is actually below 500 this year, specifically when a match goes the distance. Think about what that means when you line it up against everything else. Eala has already taken a set off Swiatek in 2 of their 3 surfaces combined. She just won a 3-set battle against the player who beat Serena Williams, and she is walking into Saturday against an opponent who statistically struggles more than people assume once a match stops being routine. None of this guarantees Eala wins. Tennis does not work that way, and Swiatek remains one of the most dangerous closers in the sport when she finds her rhythm early. But every single piece of evidence we just laid out, the tied head-to-head, the set she has taken in both previous meetings, the grass season form, the mental toughness shown against Joint, and Swiatek's 3-set vulnerability this year all points toward the same conclusion. That word tricky was not politeness. It was a warning she gave herself. So let's go back to where we started. Tricky. Not dangerous, not tough, not any of the polite words champions usually reach for. Now you know why she picked that one specifically. It was not modesty. It was not a throwaway line in a press conference. It was a 6-time Grand Slam champion sitting on one of the greatest streaks in the history of this tournament, quietly admitting there is a version of Saturday she cannot fully control. If Eala wins, this stops being a nice story about a rising player from the Philippines. It becomes something bigger. She would become the first player from her country, man or woman, to ever reach the 4th round of a Grand Slam. Bigger than Miami. Bigger than anything she has done in her career so far. And it would not just be her story anymore, because Eala is not doing this alone. She is part of a wave. Gauff, Andreeva, Eala, a new generation that keeps showing up in the biggest matches against the players who have ruled this sport for years and, increasingly, refusing to just lose politely and go home. Every legacy in tennis eventually gets tested by someone new. The real question is whether Saturday is the day that testing becomes undeniable. We do not know the answer yet. Nobody does, not even Swiatek. And that uncertainty is exactly the point. What we do know is this match is going to happen, the numbers are going to speak for themselves, and whatever happens on that court is going to matter far beyond one scoreline. So here's what I'm going to do. The second this match ends, I am breaking it down, point by point, the same way we just did here. If Eala pulls it off, we go through exactly how she did it. If Swiatek closes it out, we go through exactly where that tricky feeling turned out to be right. Either way, the story does not end when the match does. It's just getting started. If you want to be here for that breakdown, this is the moment to subscribe. Not because the channel needs it, because you are going to want to know exactly how this ends.